Hello everyone, Steven here from Redolessence with another fragrance review, and today we have a fragrance from the house of Ellis. It's actually their eponymously titled fragrance, Ellis for Men. So it is self-titled, but I don't want you to get the impression that this is one of the earlier releases from the house, or that this was like a freshman release, so to speak. This one actually came out in 2008, so it's about 4 years old, not quite sure what month it was released in. But when you think of Ellis, I think the most iconic fragrance that comes to mind is 360 for Men. And with me especially, that bright, zesty, lemony opening of 360 for Men is what really helps that fragrance stand out. So when I came across this one, or when I saw this one in a GQ magazine, I was under the impression that this would be a contender, or this would be somewhere in that same genre. So just to give a little bit of anecdotal history behind this fragrance. Back in 2008, when this fragrance was released, I had a subscription to GQ magazine, and it felt like every issue that I would come across was advertising this fragrance in one way or another. So being that I do save these fragrances, I looked for it, and I actually managed to locate this ad over here. So if you take a look at it, it's a picture of a man, or a model rather, with his arm over his shoulder laying down on a boat in what appears to be the middle of the sea, with the fragrance over there in the bottom right hand corner. So when you look at this advertisement, it gives you the impression that it is an aquatic fragrance, you know, being that he's in the middle of the sea, or that it has those marine notes. And it's not, as a matter of fact. It's actually quite contradictory, which is why I was surprised by this fragrance, but in a good way. When you spray it, let's formally run the notes, run through the notes for this one. We have leather, musk, orris root, grapefruit, woodsy notes, and resin. So at the same time, I want to remind myself what it smells like, and you guys get to see how well the atomizer works, or lack thereof. So it's not bad. It gets the job done. Very nice presentation on the bottle, though. So yeah, in the opening, it's very leathery and it's very resinous. Imagine going to like a store that sells leather couches, like Raymore and Flanagan couches, sorry, and yeah, just imagine just like sitting down and crashing on one of those couches. That's what this one is very reminiscent of to me. At the same time, you do have that really bright resinous feel. Now you do get a little bit of citrus from the grapefruit, but it's nothing overpowering. So it's not like the lemon in 360 for Men. It's definitely nothing sweet like a mandarin orange or a tangerine would give to a fragrance. There's no sweetness in this one as well. Now, amber is a resin, but I'm almost convinced that there's no amber in this one, because it smells very resinous, but at the same time, I think it may just be, you know, a styrax, a Papanax, labdanum, no amber in this one. The only thing about this fragrance is that some people have said it actually has a metallic accord to it. Not exactly a note, but maybe a combination of different notes working together to give off that impression. And I see what people are talking about. There is a slight metallic note in this one, or accord rather. People have compared it to wet copper pennies. People have compared it to wet dogs even. I don't get that. When I smell Secretions Magnifique, I get that. When I smell this one, it just smells very masculine. It smells very refined, kind of sophisticated. It's the type of scent that I could picture somebody wearing with a leather jacket, or a faux leather jacket, because it just gives off that vibe. So just to compare it to a few other fragrances that I have gotten my nose around, I would say, if you're familiar with Lone Star Memories by Tower Perfumes, you do have that signature orris root in the mid, but just imagine it without that carrot seed. That gives it that really smoky vibe. At the same time, in the mid, I think it's also comparable to Italian Cypress by Tom Ford. If you've ever smelled that one, with the cypress and the resins in that one, the two smells are very, very similar, minus the oak moss. I believe there's a little bit of oak moss in Italian Cypress. I'm not entirely sure about that, but if there is, just imagine that without the oak moss. And I would say maybe like a tolerable metallic opening. Maybe, I don't want to say Secretions Magnifique, because I cannot imagine a tolerable version of that fragrance. But imagine maybe Blood Concepts A, without that bright green, herbal, fresh accord. So just a metallic note. And that's really what I get out of this one. And then the dry down, I think, is very comparable to a very powdery, smooth, leathery Bulgari Black, or a milder Midnight of Paris. So with that being said, let's get down to the rating for this fragrance. In terms of uniqueness, this one earned an 8 out of 10 from me. There aren't too many resources or too many websites online with a great deal of information about this fragrance, so I had a hard time finding out who the nose is behind this fragrance. Nevertheless, whoever he or she may be, I was certainly able to determine that there were quite a few creative risks taken with this fragrance. It just seems like something that deviates from the norm. It's not a contender against 360 for men, and it certainly doesn't have those cologne-y characteristics that you would expect from a major designer house with that reputation and those sort of fragrances in their inventory, so to speak. So I think this one really stood out, and of course that metallic note really does stand out, which is attributed to the resinous character of this fragrance. So an 8 out of 10 for uniqueness, just because it's something that I was pleasantly surprised by, and it's something that I haven't smelled too much in fragrances. So 8 out of 10. Longevity, this one earned a 7 out of 10 for me. It is an eau de toilette concentration, so you can expect it to last anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. Of course, maybe a little longer depending on your body chemistry and how compatible this one is with it. For me, it lasts 7 hours. So I think that's above average for an eau de toilette concentration, but at the same time, this one gets very weak very fast, and that's something that I think I could not give too much credit to for this fragrance. So 7 out of 10 for longevity. Projection, 6 out of 10. This one projects very, very well for the first hour, and then it kind of dries down into nothing. It etherealizes and it gets lost into the mist. And that's something that upsets me about this one, because it does have that strong masculine character, and I find myself switching a lot between this one and Bulgari Black. So when I don't want to wear black, I go to this one, especially when I'm feeling a little more daring. Now, some people have said that black is their daring scent in their starting lineup. This is an equal, very comparable contender. So if you like black, try this one out, but it doesn't have that burning rubber accord that you get in black. Very different on a whole other level. Now, in terms of versatility, 6 out of 10. Unfortunately, because that metallic note has offended people, people have compared it, like I said, to copper pennies, to wet dogs, to chain link fences. I mean, it gets absurd how many comparisons this one has received, and they all seem to have a negative connotation. So for that reason alone, I don't see too many people wearing it, and I'm actually quite afraid to wear it in the event that somebody may actually smell this on me and be turned off by it or be discouraged by it, just because they might feel the same way about it in terms of its smell. So in terms of versatility, certainly for an older man, can't imagine someone in their teens or in their early 20s wearing this one. At the same time, I think this is one that I would wear more in the nighttime. I would stay with maybe like the aromatic fougères or the citrus-based fragrances for the daytime, the more fresh and aquatic fragrances. This one, I don't think would do the trick, but it is a very, very sophisticated fragrance. I could wear this to a job interview. I would prefer to wear something with a little more woods in it, maybe a little more vetiver, a little greener smelling, but this one I think would do the job. So 6 out of 10 for versatility, and lastly 7 out of 10 for presentation. It's actually quite a nice bottle. It's made out of a thick, sturdy glass. The cap does come off and it fits into place really, really well and very snugly, so you can lift the bottle without the fear of it coming off. Now, the name of the house, or the fragrance perhaps, but I'm sure it's the house, is engraved into the cap itself. So very nice presentation on that behalf. And it also has this, seems like a fabric material of interwoven fabric hanging off the atomizer. And it's almost reminiscent to the loops that you get on a pair of blue jeans, the ones that you pass your belt through. And this one kind of just swivels around the whole bottle. Kind of wish that represented the versatility of the fragrance, but it doesn't. And it has this little metallic ring and buckle there. I'm not quite sure what to call it, but it looks very nice. I think if this were made out of leather or a faux leather, that would satisfy the theme a lot more, but it's not. But at the same time, it still looks very, very plain, but at the same time it's very masculine. You know, it's not demanding attention and it's not standing out, but I think it's not standing out in a good way. So I'm pretty satisfied with this one. So 7 out of 10 for presentation, and then of course that earns this fragrance an overall mark of 34 out of 50. Now, if you have smelled this fragrance, please let me know what other fragrance you could compare this to, because I got Italian Cypress by Tom Ford, Black by Bulgari. Maybe the metallic note is comparable to one of the Blood concepts. Maybe O without that berry sweet top note, or maybe A without that green fresh note. So if you have smelled this one, please offer a little bit of input. I'm curious myself as to what other people can compare this one to, especially since smell is very interpretive and people perceive it differently. So once again, thank you so much for watching. This has been Stephen with another fragrance review from Redolessence.